And so, what are the dark spirits, the dark shadows? Well, we all have them. And what they are is simply the things that lie beneath the dark parts of our souls and our past experiences that we simply don't want to deal with, that are too painful, too ugly, too much to deal with if we allow them to surface. And so we just simply keep them buried deep down inside. They are the experiences that we have buried inside of our subconscious, and they are brought to the surface and manifested in undesirable ways. And these ways might be cheating, it could be getting angry unnecessarily with your children, with your spouse, with friends, co-workers, jealousy, stealing, allowing ourselves to be used and mistreated. These are all manifestations of the dark spirits that we're talking about here. And when traumatic or unpleasant events happen to us, we often just don't deal with it right away. And we kind of file it away in what I call the file cabinet. We file it away in our file cabinet, and we put it in there, and we shut the door to the file cabinet and say, we'll just go back and deal with it later. You know, we molested, we'll just go back and deal with it later. You know, someone tells us that we're not good enough, that we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough. It hurts us, it cuts us down to the soul, to the quick. But we don't deal with it. We just put it in a file cabinet and close the door, and then we lock it with a little key. But the problem is, we keep stuff in the drawers of the file cabinet, and stuff in the drawers and stuff in the drawers, and we put more of those papers and folders on top of all of the unpleasant experiences that we deal with. We just keep putting them on top of one another until one day we can't even close the door anymore of the file cabinet. I mean, we pushing it, we're kicking it, we're using our elbows, our whole bodies even, to try to close the drawer to the file cabinet, but it just won't close because there's so much stuff in it. I mean, there's just papers falling out all over the place. And then what happens? We walk by one day and we pick up one of those pieces of paper and it sets it off. That's when things begin to manifest. That's when you see people snap, mood swings, overeating, right? Just being mean and rude. That's how those types of things end up happening. And you know, really, it's those thoughts and feelings that really are just too painful for us to acknowledge and accept. Things about ourselves that we simply refuse to admit are there. And we repress them. We repress them so that we just don't have to deal with them at all. But the issue is, sooner or later, they do resurface. And when the dark spirits surface, everybody feels the effect of it. And I'll tell you why. Because the issues that we have as individuals that are the result of these unresolved and undealt with and unacknowledged negative feelings we have deep down on the inside, these are the things that result in the things that happen in the world that are negative, because there are people who are dealing with negative things, negative feelings that are causing these things to happen. So when we hear about people who just snap and go up into a post office or a restaurant or their job and just start shooting up the place, the schools, these babies shooting up these schools, That's the result of the dark spirits. Why? Because there are the things that lie beneath that are not dealt with. And the file cabinet, the drawer, is overfilled and they can't put it anywhere anymore. So then they just lose it and they go, and all of that stuff in the subconscious creeps right into the conscious mind, and then they act upon it primally, animalistically. That's what happens. So for example, think about road rage. I mean, really, I want you to really think about what happens with road rage. When you have two people coming from two different destinations who get into their cars to go home or go to the grocery store or to the golf course or wherever it is that they may be heading. They get in, one person cuts off another. And then you can have a situation where somebody goes from anywhere from yelling, flipping the bird, to, well, we know that there are people who've actually gotten killed or injured during incidents of road rage. And more often than not, it's not even the act itself of the cutting off, of you didn't turn, using your turn signal. It's not that. The people were already in a certain negative, heightened, agitated emotional state when they got into the car in the first place. Someone had already had a bad day. The boss pissed somebody off. Somebody may have just walked in on their spouse cheating, or the children broke something in the house, or they didn't get the raise that they wanted. So when they got in the car, they were already pissed, already agitated. Something that had already happened that they had not maybe had an opportunity to deal with, or they didn't want to deal with it right then. So then you have a situation where, two people get in the car and just something as simple as somebody turning without a turn signal can escalate into something very, very tragic. So this is what we need when we say that. Okay? So the question is, these dark spirits, right? How are they formed? How do they even come to be? Well, often they start really, really young. And, as children, we can receive certain messages from the adults around us and even from other children. And people don't even realize that they are giving these hurtful and negative messages to us. For example, you may have a young boy who maybe is viewed as overweight by his family. And so then he goes to get something to eat in the kitchen or maybe at a friend's house, and they go, "Why are you getting that food? You eat too much. That's exactly why you as big as you are." That child is going to take that, and it's going to go down into his subconscious. That's hurtful to a child. Another example, a child is molested by a family member, or children in the neighborhood tell a girl that she's not as pretty as her sister. Children can be really cruel. We know that. Or a father repeatedly tells his children he's coming to pick them up, but he never shows. These are all messages to a child that says, you know what, you're not worthy. You're not worthy of love. you're not worthy of respect. You're nothing. You're not okay. Being you is not okay. These are all the messages that are sent to this child. And so the child is going to take these, and because he does not have the capabilities yet to cognitively process these things and understand where the messages are coming from, and to say to him or herself that that's not true. These things don't make me who I am. I just have to take these messages and I just have to throw them out. Children are not able to do that. And so they internalize these messages and they store them in their little mini file cabinets, right? And they grow and they grow and they grow and become seasoned over time. And as they become an adult, these are the things that cause the snapping that we talked about. Inability to maintain relationships. Just people being mean and nasty, agitated all the time. Okay? And so, we begin to overcompensate is what happens. With these messages that we were just speaking of, we begin to overcompensate. And so what that begins to look like is, if you're too soft or nice, you're told, then you become mean and aggressive to compensate for that. Or if you're told you're not smart enough, you may become an overachiever. Or, if you're told that you're unattractive, you just may become just conceited and impossible. And so we do this to disprove ourselves, to disprove what it is that people tell us that we are, that is so hurtful. And so then we carry this stuff into adulthood. You have a woman who feels insecure, about her looks, so she wears small, tight-fitting clothes and a lot of makeup and just hang it all out there. And guys who question their own manhood, they kind of may do over-the-top, dangerous stuff just to prove that they are a man, and then they do it as a denial of what's inside, because they're hiding from their own dark spirits. They're hiding from those things deep down inside that they've been carrying with them and have been hurting them, for so long. But although they're buried, they're in the file cabinet actually waiting to be released, because the file cabinet really does want to be cleaned out. The file cabinet doesn't want to be overstuffed with all of that stuff. It's uncomfortable. We really want to release all of that stuff that's deep down inside of us. And so how do we know that? Well, because those spirits, the dark spirits, our files, they kind of show up. They do show themselves from time to time. They kind of sneak out, and creep out of there. And the way that they show up is they show up through picking arguments, through putting other people down, through, overeating, through being closed off and emotionally unavailable. Because it's hard work to keep hiding and denying. That takes a lot of work to consciously push that stuff down all the time and not deal with it. And so the mind, the psyche does want to rest from that sometimes. And so what happens is the mind just simply gets tired of it after a while, says, hey, I'm just going to let it all hang out. And then that's when we have acting out. When we say that people are acting out, and you have grown people going into fits and just acting a fool and acting like a 10-year-old, wanting to get their way, and then the alcoholism and the drug use and those types of things. That's just acting out, and that is your psyche's way of saying, you know what, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of holding all of this stuff in here, and so I'm ready. I need a release. I'm ready to release some of this stuff. And so, there's a very interesting phenomenon that happens. And, according to the well-known spiritualist Deepak Chopra, we are all an embodiment of opposite forces and qualities. Which means, you can't have one without the other. You can't know what darkness is without knowing light. You can't know what courage is without knowing weakness. You can't know what happiness is without knowing sadness. It takes both sides to balance out and to know what each thing is. And that's why you have songs like, joy and pain, sunshine and rain. We hear that all the time in songs, just kind of the opposites. And that's what that is. And so, each of those things is very important to remember lives inside of each of us. For every person who's mean, that person can also be the nicest person in the world. For every person who, may be lazy, that person also has qualities of being very hardworking and industrious. That's just the way the universe works. And so the potential for everything in the universe lives inside of each and every one of us. And sometimes, we have to clean out that negative part in order to get to the positive part of us. And so, we have this thing that we do called projection a lot of the times. And what happens is, instead of owning and acknowledging the quality in ourselves, we just don't particularly like those things that we want to keep buried down, those dark secrets that we're talking about. We just simply throw them onto somebody else. So if you think of one person that you just most dislike, and think about those things about that person that you just cannot stand. Oh, this person just gets on my nerves. Person is just so lazy, just doesn't care about anything, just reckless, doesn't take pride in his or her work, his or her job, just not together at all. Well, there's a good chance that because you are identifying those traits in that person, that you actually exhibit some of those traits yourself. And I know that may be hard to hear. I know you may be surprised to hear me say that. But yeah, because, I know some of us have heard this kind of the urban term, gang recognizes gang. It's the same thing. We recognize those things in others that are most like the traits and the qualities that we have ourselves. That's why we know it. That's why it's familiar. But because we're not quite ready to acknowledge those things in ourselves, we simply say that it's the other person. For example, we've all heard where people go, oh, that person, she thinks she's so cute. She thinks she's so smart. She thinks she's so pretty. Well, there's two things happening there. Either you think those things about yourself, but you're not comfortable vocalizing it, or you really think those things about that person. It's not that the other person thinks it. You actually think that about the other person. So that's just the way that it is. And the reason why is because deep down inside, those dark spirits, as we mentioned before, they do want to get out. And that's their way of coming out to breathe, to get some release. So by projecting them on somebody else, it kind of allows them to have a little bit of life outside of the file cabinet. But we're not ready to deal with it quite yet, so we don't acknowledge that it's our own stuff. And so basically, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that those things that we criticize in others, they're really part of ourselves, but we just don't want to acknowledge it because we're not quite ready. It's just too painful. It's like when we hear little kids say, "I know you are, but what am I?" It's basically the same thing. And so the point is, in order to get a handle on and tame those dark spirits in our lives that are hindering us, that are keeping us from being happy, from being able to be successful, from going as far in whatever area of our lives that we would like to, we have to have the courage to face them head on. We have to have the courage to face them dead on, to stop and to look at ourselves and say, hey, what stuff is that in there that I really need to deal with, that I really need to get some closure on so that I can move forward. Because the truth of the matter is that the only way that we can be truly, truly happy and truly successful is to heal. We've got to heal. And in order to heal ourselves, our spirits, our souls, our mind, we have got to face those dark spirits that lie beneath. That's the only way. And it doesn't matter how ugly, how uncomfortable, how unpleasant, how much we just may not want to face them. We want to act like they just simply don't exist, or that they will solve themselves, or that they will just be content to just lie in a file cabinet forever. That's not the way it's going to work, because the stuff is going to keep resurfacing over and over and over again. It's going to keep manifesting itself in incompleted jobs and incompleted tasks and overeating and gambling and drug use and alcoholism and all of those destructive behaviors. It's going to keep happening because all of those things are just an effort to keep pushing our stuff back down into the pits of our subconscious. And so to stop wreaking havoc in your life and adversely affecting your physical and your spiritual, your psychological, your emotional well-being, you have got to deal with them without altering. Don't change them. Deal with them exactly as they are. Whatever your issue is, deal with it exactly as it is. Don't try to change it around. Don't try to reframe it. If your issue is that someone has told you when you were younger that you were not as pretty as your sister, don't try to reframe it. Just deal with that. Someone told you you're not as pretty as your sister. And so, be prepared to just attack that and to deal with it on that level. Because, guess what? Success, it is possible when we release ourselves from the dark spirits. It's possible. You can do it. But you have to have the courage to face it. What you resist will persist. it does not go away by itself. Thank you. The dark shadows. What are the dark shadows? Where are they? Where do they come from? The dark shadows are those dark spirits that we bury deep down within our psyches, deep dark places in our souls and our subconscious mind. They are the things that we keep buried because they are too unpleasant and too painful, too embarrassing for us to deal with them. They're far too painful sometimes for us to acknowledge and accept. Unresolved issues and unresolved events, things we will press so we don't have to deal with them. So we just keep them buried as best as we can. And we all have them. Think about the times in your life when someone whose opinion really mattered to you said you weren't good enough, you weren't pretty enough, you weren't handsome enough, you weren't smart enough, you were never going to make it, you eat too much. Why can't you be like your sister? Why can't you be like your brother? All the rest of the kids can do it, how come you can't? Those are the things that are buried deep down in our subconscious mind that we really wish were not even there. And those thoughts, although they're buried, they want to come out to play sometimes. They just want to come out and wreak a little havoc, and they just want to play in the field. And when that happens, when we can't keep them underfoot, it comes out in the form of overeating, overachievement, cheating, anger, management issues, gambling, spousal abuse, drug use, alcoholism. Yes, those are the ways in which our dark spirits, they come out to play with us in the light sometimes. You know, I liken it to a file cabinet. And so what happens is the things that happen to us that we bury in our subconscious, we take them just like we take papers that go into a file cabinet, or like our bills. When we get bills in the mail and we look at it and we go, I don't want to deal with this right now. So we put them in the file cabinet, and then we get another one. Can't deal with this one right now. I don't have the money. So we put it in the file cabinet. I'm just not in the mood for this right now. So we put it in the file cabinet. And those unpleasant experiences, things that we're told that cut us to our very souls, things that people say that hurt us so badly we don't even have the words to express how hurt, how badly we feel about what has just been done to us or what has just been said to us, and we take them like pieces of paper that go into a file cabinet, and we just keep stuffing the drawers of the file cabinet, and we close the drawers hoping that we'll never have to see them again. We lock it with a key, almost with the skeleton key, hoping that we'll never have to open that drawer again. But we do have to open the drawer again, because more things come and more things happen, and one day we put something else into that cabinet and it just won't close. The file cabinet is stuffed. There's no more room, and we use our bodies, we use our shoulders and our leg muscles, and we use every ounce of strength we have to close the drawer, and we shake it and we almost knock that file cabinet right over because we just want to close the drawer. We don't want to deal with anything else. We don't want to face the stuff that's in there. But it won't close, will it? sooner or later, there's just so much stuff in that file cabinet that it just won't close anymore. There's no more room to put anything else. And then the papers, they begin to fall on the floor. And when you least expect it, you walk by and you pick up a piece of paper. Wonder what this is. And you see something and it just sets you off. You hear something on television, you see something that someone else does, someone says something to you that triggers something that's buried deep down in that subconscious, and it sets you off. Sometimes it's things that we forget are even there. And then we decide to just eat it away. Or we decide to just bury it in a bottle. Or we go and we find the nearest drug dealer or the nearest casino, or we take it out on our children, or we have an incident of road rage because the files in our file cabinet have overflowed. They've overflowed. And so we begin to, what we say our children do when they act out. We act out because we haven't dealt with what we need to deal with properly. And it's made manifest in ways that are unhealthy, ways that are just not good for ourselves, our families, our jobs, or society in general. And so that is what the dark spirits are. And we're going to talk more about those dark spirits.